Hello, Instagram family. Welcome to this next conversation with the most incredible Toran McGill as part of the Sensual Sovereignty Burn the Box series. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Toran before I bring her on. So Toran McGill is the Pleasure Priestess, Pleasure Embodiment Coach, Body Doula, Luminary of Pleasure, and poet and author. I love all of her titles and how they don't fit into any one box. And then I invite you to read a little bit more about what Toran does. I'll put it in the description when I post this, and I've also posted it in a promotion post. But Toran supports people in shifting from a pain and punishment paradigm into their pleasure and potency lifestyle, reconnecting people to their soulmates, their bodies. Toran has spent decades training bodies to be athletes, performers, and entertainers, including her own, to perform and conform to expectation. Now she can be found creating spaces for people to be free in their bodies. Body freedom expands confidence, deepens intimate wellness, and increases vitality, bringing pleasure back to life from the boardroom to the courtroom and even into the bedroom, erecting conscious cocks and liberating potent pussies. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, let me bring her on. Here we are. Okay, here we go. And I'm gonna paste in here. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, it's so good to be here with you.
It's such an honor to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for saying yes, for agreeing to jump on this conversation where, as we were communicating yesterday, we're kind of just, I'm just waving to people who are joining. Hello. I love that we're both open to just dropping in and seeing where this flows without any kind of real agenda, any kind of expectation. To me, that is just the most potent way to do this, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How exciting.
So I will say, just for anyone who hasn't joined in one of the or witnessed one of these conversations before, this is part of a series to breathe life. This was my intention, breathe life into this concept of sensual sovereignty that I describe as embodied love, liberation, and the license to expand the expression of our true essence. And then I had one of our colleagues from the same coaching program that we did, and she just finished it last year, actually, Cosmos, who talked about thinking outside the box, smashing the box, and burning the box. And this is where this also got to be part of it, because as we expand our true essence, we no longer fit into boxes. We no longer fit into places that feel constricted and constrained. And as I was reading your beautiful introduction, I can see you have been doing that very successfully in so many ways.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder what feels alive for you around this topic, and it can be.
Hearing you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's true. I have done that for years. Not
Mhm.
always intentionally, but just
Mhm.
because what I wanted to do wasn't what was around, right? Like, so, um, and it started in various ways, like being the only woman of color in an AP class, or being the only woman of color who's like, I need to join the horseback riding team. And everybody's like, what? So it wasn't because I was out to break and smash boxes. It was because that's the stuff that I wanted to do and nobody else was doing it. So I was often the only one in the room, or the only one not expected to be in the room, I should say.
Ah.
So, and then it also started when I was younger. It was like, who said that pink was for girls? Who said that? Like, I don't abide by that. And that would be a fight in our house. Or it's like, who said that I have to wear a dress to church? What makes that real? Okay, I'm not wearing a dress. I don't want to wear a dress. I want to wear pants. And I remember literally having a conversation with one of my grand aunts one Sunday, and she did not go to church, but she was very upset that I wore pants. And she was like, you wore pants to church? It's like, yes. And then she said to me, the DEVIL is going to get you. And I was like, Auntie, I thought it was easier to get got in a skirt. And she was like, get out, just leave. So it's never really, not always been an intention or on purpose, but it has always been something that I've been doing. So yeah.
Mm. Oh, I love hearing the stories. I love hearing the background and how this was really just this is part of your true essence was to be where you wanted to be,
Yeah.
whether you were expected or not, whether people thought it was right or not, whether it was part of like the custom or the culture or the rules or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful to have kind of, it sounds like I identified with that part of you very early on, which for some people can, myself included, can take a long time to like start to, oh, well, yeah, I want to do this or I want to do that, but after many years of like following the rules and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I would have definitely told you that I was a rule follower. Like, until I heard you say that, I would have not have said I've been burning boxes since I was little, but I've been burning boxes since I was little.
Good morning.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I would also tell you that I'm definitely a rule follower. Like, we need to be on time, we need to turn the assignment in on time, we need to do all of those things, we need to get the straight A's, we need to not get in trouble. But there are
Yeah.
every now and then that I'm like, who says? Who cares?
Some rules applied.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So it's been quite a lifetime. Like, I have done many things, including leaving a law firm. I used to work at a law firm as a legal secretary and administrative assistant to become a pole dance instructor full time. So
Oh,
so
amazing.
yeah, so I started dancing when I was 3, and
Mhm.
that was one area of like the sensual movement of dance, and
Mhm.
being with a pole in the room. It was one that I hadn't explored, and I had done ballet and tap and jazz and everything else, partnered and unpartnered, and I had taken a workshop, and I was like, this is really fun. So then I started as a student, and they were like, we're looking for teachers. I'm like, okay, well, let me just audition. And they said yes. And I was like, okay, now I'm quitting my law firm job. So.
This is way more fun. Who needs a desk and whatever else?
Exactly. So, and that started the awakening of dancing for my own pleasure versus
Mhm.
dancing for the performance and the applause. And that was fun too, right? Dancing for the applause. There's nothing like the applause at the end of a performance. But when you have the freedom to move your body in your own expression versus the
Mhm.
choreographed expression, or
Mhm.
move your body in the power of your own slow, and you get to dissect and digest the music that's in the room and how it feels and moves through you, there's nothing like that.
Mm. Yes. Oh, thank you for that
Yeah.
description, that like taking us there, because I think that is all part of this, like what this idea of sensual sovereignty for me, of like being in our body, allowing it to move the way our body wants to move, like following that, and that how that can feel versus a different, which can, I'm sure, could be exhilarating. I don't know. I never performed in like in that kind of way in a dance. I think, well, maybe I have in like a group, in a big group I have, but it's like that's a whole different thing, right? To be moving and performing and kind of um, doing that for other people, a person or other people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's some overlap there too, you know, as
Yeah, yeah.
well, you know. I'm curious about now, looking back, because like you said, you think of yourself as a rule follower, but you did find yourself in spaces where you were not like everybody else in
Mm-hmm.
there, you
Mm-hmm.
know, these kind of spaces. And I'm just curious, reflecting on that, if now there's anything that comes to you about what that felt like, because I can tell you for me, like to think about, especially early on in my life, my whole focus was like trying to fit in, trying to belong, trying to, and this was ridiculous because it was like I was, you know, often in spaces where there wasn't anyone that looked like me or whatever. But I guess what comes to me is that it could feel so uncomfortable. And there's an attention that comes
Mm-hmm.
when we are not like everyone else. I just wonder if there's anything that comes to you to reflect on that or
I think when I was younger,
mm-hmm,
it didn't really, it was just the way that it was, right? That
mm-hmm,
there were separate spaces. There was
mm-hmm,
family space that was all people of variety of colors, and then there was school, or
right,
then there was cheer, or then there was dance. And so they were in my head two separate spaces, and I conducted myself differently according to each expectation. So that was just the way that it was. And it
yeah,
wasn't until college that it got really uncomfortable, that I was like, oh, I don't, mm. And it was one thing growing up in the state of California that has a little more general liberties to itself,
mm-hmm.
and then going to college in a state like Texas that has little less. They're definitely about their boxes in the state of Texas. So
Yes, I would
that's where things
imagine.
got to be uncomfortable, right? Like I would audition for a part and someone would say, well, we don't really have any servants in this play, so we don't really see a place for you. Like, oh,
Okay.
where I came from, that wasn't an issue. Like I would get cast as so and so's sister or so and so's mother, or so I would like I don't understand what you're saying, or
Mm-hmm.
I would sign up to be, you know, in a dating pool. Like they're gonna put this girl's college with this boy's college, and everybody's gonna date. And then I would show up, and they'd be like, "Oh, we didn't, we weren't able to match you. Why? Uh, I mean, there's just no one over there to match you with."
Uh,
Oh, you mean there are no black boys in that college?
uh,
Okay, I see what you're saying. So that's when it started to become really uncomfortable and
mm-hmm.
really obvious. And that's when I realized that I was fighting a box that
Mm-hmm.
the larger world had perceived for me of like, we don't have a place for you. I was like, I don't
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
yeah,
That didn't that didn't make sense because where I
yeah.
came from, I either auditioned and got the part, or I
Mm-hmm.
danced and I had the lead, or so I don't understand. And so as a child, it was just those were the two separate places. There was the
Mm-hmm.
family space where we knew all the R&B and all the hip hop dances, and then there was school where I knew all the heavy metal and I knew all the rock. And then there was college. And I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So it was only at college where it got really difficult for me. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I see what's happening here. The world at large has created a box for me as a black child, and they don't have a place for me here in their white Christian world. Interesting. So I was a big box burner in college as well, because I'd be like, well, if you do that, then I'm going to have to do this. And if you do that, then I'm going to have to do this. And there were often times when I also found myself trying to hide, like when the O.J. Simpson hearing came out, I was on campus and I was like, and the campus erupted in a very disappointment situation. And I was like, okay, it's now time that I leave this campus and go to my room, because I knew that I was unsafe in that moment. So yeah. So it wasn't really for college to me until, I mean, there were other incidents as a child that, struck out or became a thing, but it wasn't my norm. It wasn't normal that I would audition for a play and not get cast. It wasn't normal that I would audition for a dance and not get cast. It wasn't normal that I wasn't spotlighted in a dance or given a solo or, so none of that. I didn't know that I couldn't do those things until I got somewhere else, and they were like, we don't have a place for you here.
Wow.
What are you saying?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, what are you talking about?
What do you mean? I'm the most talented person in the room.
Like, of course I belong here. Of course there's someone you could pair me with in that other college, or, like.
Yeah. So things like that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Wow. I'm trying to think of, there's so many places to go with that story, with that, with you sharing about this experience in college. I suppose one question I have is, like, how did you get through it? Or, like, were there people that you were able to find that you could talk to about these experiences? Or, like, how much, was there much diversity at all, or it was like really?
There was very little. There were maybe, and it was a small university to begin with, so it's not like I was in a sea of 30,000 people. But there was a very smaller population of Black people, particularly. I mean, not to mention any other ethnicity or color, but I found myself calling home a lot, like, this just happened, and this just happened. And I had friends, but they didn't know what an ally was, and they didn't know that what was being told to me was wrong. They were like, well, that makes sense. I'm like, does it?
Oh no.
Does it really? So, and then there were, also places where the church conversation is still happening of what I should or shouldn't be wearing. Like, of course you're going to change clothes before we go to service. Why am I changing clothes? It's only Wednesday. It's not even Sunday. Like, we're going to put on stockings and stuff. So there was a constant battle of me being in the environment, and I had people that I could go to be like, this doesn't feel good, but usually they were people back home. They were not really people on the campus. There were a few people on the campus that I could say to. Like, I remember being in a classroom, and of course I was the only one in the classroom, and the instructor asked if they thought racism still existed. And I was like, this should be interesting, because the obvious answer is yes.
This is a no-brainer here. Next question.
And they were like, no, it doesn't. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to tell you that it does. And here are a couple examples. And they were, shocked, like, what? That's considered racism? Yes. So it wasn't really a comfort in college. Like, honestly, I think I stayed because of that need to fight, right? And prove myself right and worthy.
Yes.
But I definitely found the people that I conversed with most were people at home. They weren't people.
It wasn't like getting support there or finding allies there or people who knew what that would even mean.
No.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So then to find my way back to pleasure or to pleasure is like a big, huge huge burning of the box, right? Because now that means
Yes.
that I'm not only in the eyes of other people, I'm anti God and I'm anti
Mm,
right and I'm anti religion and I'm anti,
mhm,
when in reality, I am 100% aligned with that is greater than me. I am 100% aware that the gift of pleasure was given to me at birth. I'm 100% aware that I can use pleasure as it's a fuel, as Rashida Conway Miller says, versus
mhm,
a resource. I mean, it's a resource versus, the icing on the cake. And it's not a reward. It is
mhm,
mine to bathe in and to conquer, in a sense, and to
mhm.
expand.
Yeah.
So that was definitely, had you asked me, in college, if this is the conversation we'd be having, no, would be the answer. Absolutely not. But finding the sensual journey of body expression was definitely the first part of that, of like, oh,
Oh,
there's freedom to be had here. And
yes.
this freedom is mine to have here. And it
Yes.
only gets bigger and bigger and bigger
Yeah.
as I tune in and hear or
Mhm,
release the reins of
mhm.
what is expected to my body and allow my body to do what she wants to do. Oh,
Yes.
this is freedom in this, and
Yeah.
not everybody gets that. So
Yeah.
let me just spread it around to everybody who wants it. So
Yes. Everyone who will listen. Yes. They need to hear this. And I
yeah.
just, thank you so much for bringing us to pleasure. I really was like, God, because I was kind of feeling what that might have been like, your college experience. So I appreciate you getting and then to pleasure. But I do want to reflect that it sounds like you had more of this as a child, like this innate, like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And and then you had the support of your family and you were able to, with the support of your family, kind of adapt to these other settings and everything. And so there was this kind of already, um, from a young age, it sounds like just an ability to claim what you wanted and do the things you want. And you were in an environment that could support you in that in the
Mm-hmm.
different ways with your family. And then with, like you're saying, you could get roles, you could, you were, it was a more expansive way of looking at the world and at at you and everything. And it really sounds like this college experience was like this was, like you said, they're putting you in a box. It was going through a constricted, contracted,
Mm-hmm.
tight process where, like, oh, now you look around and nobody can really see you as you are, or like be a support or whatever. And so going through that and then finding your way to pleasure. I am curious about what brought you to the pleasure world from that, but it does sound like sometimes, I mean, I'm aware of this in it's almost like this the hero or the heroine's journey kind of a process
Mm-hmm.
where we're on our path and we're going along and sometimes we just don't know, we're young and we just start doing our thing and whatever, and then we're going to face some kind of obstacle, many of us, many obstacles, many things, but um, we get, facing that gives us a perspective and gives us kind of a motivation to like really then expand and express and like feel this more liberation having gone through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It wasn't really, when I came home, I honestly
Yeah.
came home hurt and wounded and like I didn't understand. Like, what? And so there was some time getting back into performing and going out to audition and going back to dance classes. And
Mm.
when I left college, I like came home and got cast right away. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, right. I can actually do this. And so then I spent time as a performer and a professional actress and a dance coach and a choreographer. And I was like, oh yes, this is what I do. I can totally do this. And it was, I always say that things just happened to me. Like I was not looking for a law firm job. I was temping and someone was like, can you temp in this law firm? I'm like, no, I don't I don't know anything. I don't know anything about. They're like, okay, we'll train you. And I'm like, okay. And then I got there and I was like, this is not training. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And they're like, okay, then you can develop the training program and you can become the admin assistant. And that was it. Okay. so, so then I started doing that. And it wasn't until I decided to open the bakery that it had dropped into me. Like, again, when I was teaching pole dancing, it was still a separate situation and a sensual movement because that was that and this was this. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I started to open the bakery, and the bakery was all about bringing pleasure back to food. Because when we decide to get on the right path, when we decide that we need to do something to make a change in our world, the first thing that we decide we need to get rid of is pleasure. And when I decided to open the bakery, it had dropped in that pleasure was the way through. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we are pleasure beings. Oh, wait a minute. This food was made to turn us on, which is why it comes in an array of colors and textures and flavors. And what? Like that, I was truly awakened at the moment. I had no clue before. Like, I enjoyed moving my body and I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
teaching and I enjoyed all those other things. And in my sensual movement teaching phase, which lasted like 20 years, I loved offering it up to other people. And at that time, specifically women, of like, here's how you slow yourself down. Here's how you allow the music to move you in the way that it chooses. But it wasn't really until I started the bakery that it became a download of, this is a life force situation. This
Yeah.
isn't just a 2 hour class. This is like, pleasure needs to be all around you. What do your sheets feel like? What does the air on your skin feel like? What does the smell in your room feel like? What does the
Mm-hmm.
food that you're eating in your mouth feel like? So it wasn't until I started the bakery that it had truly dropped in that pleasure is actually the life force that it is the fuel and not the reward.
Mm. Yes. Oh, I love that. And it's so, food is essential for us to live, right? I mean,
Yeah.
movement is so, I mean, I think so important and all that, but food we have to eat. We
Mm-hmm.
have to eat. So once you can connect that the what we eat and how we experience food is, it can be pleasure, it can be
Mm-hmm.
something that we really savor and really enjoy. That really, I can see that all coming together is like all of our experiences from the time we get up till the time we go to bed can all be about pleasure.
Yes. If it's just simply centered on your food, right? Like, does that feel good right now? Or are you eating that because someone told you you're supposed to eat it? And even the things that you're supposed to eat, if you don't enjoy them, let's say Brussels sprouts, right? And you're eating them for the sake of iron or whatever, there are a variety of other things and other ways that you can get those essential nutrients. So if you are not enjoying the broccoli, then don't eat the broccoli, right? Play with it, find a new way to cook it, find a new way to love it. And then still, if you're like, no, I don't like broccoli, don't eat the broccoli. If the broccoli does not turn you on, do not eat the broccoli. But find out what's in the broccoli and what else offers that, right? Because you can get the vitamin C from an orange, or you can get, so there's so many plethora of things. And in our world today, we have the abundance and the access to so many plethora of things. There was
Yes.
a time that you could only eat what was in your region. Now I can go to the grocery store and I can get things from other regions. We don't grow dragon fruits here, but I could get them if I wanted to, right? So yeah, food is made for pleasure. Food is made for your pleasure. And it
Yeah.
was at that moment that it dropped in that I was like, oh, we are pleasure beings, and pleasure is our way through, and pleasure is our life force. I had no real idea till then.
Oh my goodness, that's so powerful. And I'm curious now, when in this journey did you become the Pleasure Priestess?
Well, that was a whole nother stepping in. I think,
I'm
you
like,
know,
okay, when did this happen?
it's really like growing, right? Like you start off as a baby and then you move into a toddler, and before you know it, you're an adult. Um, I had gone to do some work with Mama Gina, which is where I started my, I think, initial, other than my sensual movement, my moving into pleasure as life versus pleasure as this aside. And I had also, like I said, it had clued in when I started the bakery. And I had was cultivating some sort of something, a vision board or whatever. And I was looking for images to go on the board. And I'm searching the internet because we have that available. And what constantly kept coming up was High Priestess. And I was like, no. Okay. Anyway, I'm looking for.
I
and
love when
every
like our calling shows up and we're like, oh my God, no. I can't do this.
no, no, that's not me. And so every time I would look for something else, like a High Priestess, something would come back up. And I was like, this is not even what I asked for. And I was like, so I had to sit with that for a while of like, oh,
Yeah.
are you trying to tell me that I am? And somebody else had made a post about, being a pleasure priestess. And that just really kind of stuck to me and stung me like, what have you been running from? And I was like, oh. So it's taken some time, but I would say officially I said yes and stepped into that about, oh, since 2019, 2018, somewhere in there. But it's still in its evolvement.
Of course, as we
So,
all are,
yeah,
but yeah, that's amazing.
yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes they just come to you and you know that was a message for you. Like, oh, why does this keep coming up? So,
Yeah. So from the sensual movement that you said you did for a while,
yeah.
and so that's so embodied, this kind of to have that and to share that with other people about slowing down and listening to their bodies and moving in such a way, and then the bakery where suddenly it's like pleasure is the fuel. Pleasure is
Mm-hmm.
what we need. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the reward. I think that's really huge. And then to finding, well, the high priestess kept showing up, and
Yeah.
then to stepping into this pleasure priestess. And what has your journey been? I know it's evolving. We, as
Yeah.
our journeys are, but what did you what guided you in that path, or what did you do to really step into this?
So I was running the bakery and it was a pleasure based business, right? Like bringing pleasure back to food, but it wasn't run with pleasure. And I didn't know how to make those two things cohesive. And I
Okay.
had a big, huge bakery plan. Like I was going out to be in 21 airports and I had this whole taking over the world plan. And in 2019, I did a meditation and it said, ask yourself what you need to get rid of in order to get what you want. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, I have a list of things that I want to get rid of. So you can pick any one of these things off the list, and I will gladly let them go. And the answer that came up was the bakery. And I was like, what? No, no, no. No, you must mean the way that I'm currently running it, right? Like, I must find a way to run it with pleasure. And it was just, nope, let go of the bakery. And I was like, oh. So I cried and wailed and wailed and cried and cried and wailed. And then, and that was like in August of 2019. And I had already started the pleasure conversation with Mama Gina like in April of 2019 or December 2018, actually. And was like, okay. And I remember walking into one of the room once and watching her work the room. And I was like, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could totally do this. And then it was from her that it was actually an introduction with Layla Martin that I got from Mama Gina. Layla had come on stage for our last weekend with Mama Gina, and I was like, oh, and that's the way to get there. So I need to go take coaching and get certified through Layla. And so that's actually how I found the Vita program. And so that has been the involvement of like the technical steps of like, do this, then do this, then do this. And the rest has just been evolving. It just becomes more of a conversation of like, okay, now I'm going to post this. Okay, now, and at some point I also wrote a book. I think that came out maybe in 2018. I'm not quite sure the year of that anymore, but I was taking pictures of myself and they no longer seemed like I was in the picture. It seemed like I was missing from the picture. And I was like, I don't understand. And I used to be a professional photographer and I used to, model for myself. So I didn't understand how I was no longer in the picture. And I took Evian Whitney's Sexting Myself, and that woke things back up. And I was like, oh, I'm not turned on. I didn't know that that was missing. I didn't know that that was an essence that needed to continue to cultivate and burn and churn into your body. So then when I started that course, that's when I started writing poetry. And I was like, oh, I would like text my friend, I just sent this message to a guy. And she would be like, that sounds like poetry to me. And I'm like, what? It is? Okay. So then I'm now taking pictures of myself and poems would just start flooding out of me. So I started writing them down. So that's how the book got written. So it's kind of this path, right? So I had taught Sensual movement, opened up a bakery, written a book, started work with Mama Gina, got led to Layla, and then now we're here.
Oh my God. And somewhere in there you were a photographer and
all of those things.
And it's a law secretary. I mean,
Yes. I would have never. So just the path, the idea, like even when I was little, and I remember saying that I wanted to be a OBGYN, a baby doctor is what I thought it was. A baby doctor, a model, an actress, and something else, a lawyer. And my mother was like, you're going to have to pick one. I was like, why? Who says? She's like, you do one thing. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do one thing. I'm going to model my way through college, and then I'm going to become a baby doctor, and then I'm going to quit there. So I had never thought of just one thing as the path. I was like, if I live to be 100, who wants to be doing one thing for that long? Like that sounded ridiculous to me. So so I'm not at all surprised that I have done many things, but I would have never told you that this was the path that I was on. I was, headed to Broadway, and then I was headed to the airports, and then I was headed to, so I would have never told you that I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to burn down one more box, and now I'm going to become the Pleasure Priestess. So, and in that involvement every day, it's still of like, can I post this? Can I say that I erect conscious cocks on the internet? Okay, let's do it. Let's just see what happens. Can I post this? Can I say that I liberate potent pussies on the internet? Okay, let's just do it and see what happens. So that's how that has gone. It has truly been let's just try it out. And some days it's full of nerves and angst, but then I go back to my own embodiment practice of let's find the breath, let's shake, let's move, let's dance, let's sing, let's sound things out, and then okay, what's the worst that could happen? They could kick me off the internet and I wouldn't belong anymore. Well, I never really belonged, so that really wouldn't be a big deal, and I will always choose me. So okay, awesome, then post it, right? Like I'm not going to fire myself. I'm not going to be like, I've looked at your Instagram post and no. So, so it's been one of those, just kind of test the water, and do I like it here? Okay. And let's go in a little bit deeper, a little bit wider. Do I like it here? Okay. And in playing in my own waters and showing up back in my own body and for myself, people have been like, what are you doing? What's going on? what do you
Yeah.
do here? And I'm like, oh, well, this is what I do. You should come work with me, kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I truly love hearing, which I knew already, but just how you, as the pleasure priestess and on this path, and that was just one of the roles. I can't even, like, there were several like different yummy titles, but you're embodying it, right? And and that's just guiding you. And then it's like you already have, it really sounds like that. I want to say confidence. I don't know what, maybe there's a different word for it, but just to take action, to take the steps, to just do things, to put yourself in places that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but just to kind of flow with it, try it. And then, like, yes, have that attitude, such a beautiful attitude of like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Mm.
And no, I'm not going to fire myself for my own business. So,
Yeah, so it's fine. So we'll redirect or we won't, right?
yeah.
And I think the biggest box that I've ever burned or am continuing to burn is that thought that life happens outside of your comfort zone. And I totally disagree with that. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that when you're moving outside of your comfort zone and you're not comfortable, you
Mm-hmm.
are still in your fight, fight, freeze, right? You're like, jump off the cliff, run across the street, do the thing, go big, go hard, or go home, right? When you're,
That sounds
when
very
you're,
Texas of you.
exactly. When you're actually comforted,
Mm-hmm.
when you are fed, when you are nourished, when you've been held, when you are seen, when your nervous system is at rest and you are filled of pleasure, then you are actually comfortable. And then you can actually move in a decision in a way that is safe for you, that is fun for you, that turns you on, that lights you up, that still might have a little bit of scariness to it, but it's not about a do or die situation. It's
Mm-hmm.
about, what's that next step? Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that what we've been told is our comfort zone, that
Mm-hmm.
staying small, that working hard, that finding the grind, you are not comfortable there. That is not comfortable and it's not sustainable. But
Yes.
we've been told that it is. We have been told
Mm.
that that is our comfort zone. And
Yes.
when you are truly comfortable, your
Yes.
body flows, your breath flows, you
Mm-hmm.
are seen and held, and you know that you are safe, then you can make a decision about what feels good and the way to go, not about what's not going to get me shot on the way there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, the biggest box that I continue to burn. And I tell it to everybody. They're like, you got to get outside your comfort zone. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with being comfortable. Actually, let's
Yes.
get comfortable before we make that
Yes.
decision.
Oh, God, that is so huge. That really landed for me. And it encompasses all of this work of like the understanding our nervous system, understanding that, and also goes against what's coming to me is like, the oppressive, like the patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
colonialism, capitalism, like these systems, white body supremacy, all this that like is there's an urgency, first of all, you just got to do it. And like you said, do or die, go big or go home, like all of this kind of like this way of moving from our comfort zone to outside our comfort zone, or this way of taking action.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's so pressured. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that's just jarring. And then that gets us into a place where now we're back into like a contraction and back into our fight or flight and freeze and all of that. And then what? Like
Right.
what what
Right.
happens then when we're in that state, rather than like really nurturing ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
pleasuring, giving ourselves pleasure, taking care of ourselves so that the action that we take feels good. Yeah,
Yeah.
and stay in it.
Right. So, how long can you stay comfortable? How long can you be comforted, right? So, and I think that's particularly coming from, like you said, the patriarchal and the white world culture. There's so many places where particularly me, myself, as a woman of color, that I have been
Mhm.
taught that this is the way it is. And
Mhm.
it has been, we have been traditionally marginalized. And so I truly understand that to now stand as my family's legacy as the Pleasure Priestess is a huge freaking revolution and a huge freedom that wasn't allotted to my mother or to my grandmother, right? So to now be like, hey, people, I want you to get in your body. I want you to get turned on. And I want you to feel good about the very next decision that you make, whether it be whatever food that you're about to be putting in your mouth, or, if you need a nap, rest
Mhm.
is a resistance. And maybe your fight right now is to stop fighting you and to take a nap, right?
Yeah.
So I totally understand the evolution that has happened. And I
Yeah.
totally understand the importance of women like you and I showing up in this space and being like, you need to burn down the boxing. You need to be in your pleasure. Like, and I also understand how that sometimes make people go, I don't, I no.
Okay, but how do I do that?
Yeah, and that's why we're here, because we
Yeah.
have walked the path before them. So
Mhm.
we can walk the path with you. I can get you to as far as I've gone, and as
Mhm.
I continue to evolve in my path, you can continue to evolve in yours. So
Mhm.
that's that part of being the luminary. Of my job is to shine the
Mhm.
light back, but first to shine the light in. And it's within shining the light in that I can then, it's because I'm now radiating out that you can now see the path.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes, you are a luminary and guiding the way and showing people, like you said, or maybe it was in your introduction about that pain and punishment kind of model to this way of letting pleasure
Mm-hmm.
be the path.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
It's
of
huge. We
is
as a
so
people are addicted to our pain. We as a patriarchal society are addicted to our pain. And we'll tell you, if there's no pain, no gain. If there's no hurt, there's no glory. And it's like, and I'm not trying to tell you that life exists without pain, because that is not true. But I'm also trying to tell you that pain is that moment of something is not right. Something is not well. Something has not been loved. Something has not been seen. Something needs a change. And if you stay addicted to that pain, you're not willing to find your pleasure, and you're not willing to breathe into your body. You're going to stay in that box, because pain has a threshold, right? Like, your body can only take so much pain before it then chooses to die. Pleasure has no threshold. Your body can learn to expand and expand and expand and expand and hold more and more and more and more. But that's something that you have to be willing to teach yourself, because like, you'll start that pleasure and you'll be like, okay, that's enough, back out, back out, back out. But you have to teach your nervous system it's okay to feel good. It's
yeah.
okay to feel good. I am safe feeling good. I am safer when I'm feeling my best, right? Hangry didn't become a thing because it doesn't exist, but we can't live in that hangry, mad, painful. It's not sustainable. It doesn't, it's not gonna heal. It's not gonna nurture. It's not gonna raise our children well. So,
No, absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, yes. I really love that example of how pain has a threshold and pleasure does not have a threshold. That we can just continue if we allow ourselves, if we just
Yeah.
do it gently, perhaps, if we need to, to continue to feel more and more pleasure, we can. And then what a resource that is. What does our life look like when we're living like that? What
Yeah.
do we take? How do we inspire others? It's just like such it's so expansive,
Hmm.
the whole process of it.
Yeah.
What do you, what do you tell, or like, how would you guide someone who wants to experience more pleasure? Like they're kind of, okay, yes, this makes sense, but where it's difficult, like that, like when you're talking about people who, for someone who just kind of, oh, this feels scary, and then they want to go back to what feels more comfortable, which is the pain, because
Yes.
that's what we know.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's key, what you just said there. It's what we know. So familiar doesn't always mean comfortable. It just means it's something that you know. But one of the things that the easiest ways I use your body. I mean, it is your capacity for life, right? It is your mate with your soul. Your soul and your body got together before you were born and agreed to live this life together till death do you part, or however you still believe that. So
Mhm.
I use the body and I use the breath. And the best, like, I'll start with someone who's like, I can't, or this is scary, right? Like, let's just start breathing and let's deepen that breath and see if you can be seduced by your own breath. See if you can trace it from where it starts to where it ends. See if you can notice where it gets stuck and where it stops. See if you can fill up your entire body with breath.
Mhm.
See if you can then release your entire body from breath. Because even when you exhale and you hold on an empty, you'll notice, oh my God, my jaw is like water. Or, your belly's tight. And so see if you can find that peace. And often when I'm with someone, I can then read their body. And so even if they don't know, I can speak to their bodies and say, then release your jaw or shake out your shoulders, or maybe you need to now stomp the ground and offer that up as an invitation. So I start with the body, and I'll start with music and I'll start with breath. And before they know it, they're like, oh, that feels good in my body. I'm like, great. Now let's try this. Because if we're not feeling safe in our body to experience pleasure, we won't experience pleasure. So we first have to know our body to be a safe place. And because we're humans and because the world is what it is, we in our bodies have experienced so many painful things that the body is the first place that we'll leave. We'll numb out, we'll escape, and we've discovered our bodies not to be safe, right? Like,
Yes.
it's because of my boobs that this happened, or because of this. So if we can then come back home into our own bodies first and
Mhm.
find joy in moving that body, or joy in following that breath, or pleasure in discovering that I really do like the way lilacs smell. I really don't like the way that, bleach smells. And I've only been using bleach because that's what my mother and my grandmother have been used. But I really actually like this stuff in my house better, right? So to discover what your environment is and what will be pleasured in your environment, but starting with your body and starting with your breath. Like, do you like the way that your sheets feel on your skin? Do you like the way the shower runs? Can you change your shower? When was the last time you looked yourself in the eye? So I start with those smaller things that seem like smaller things to create the bigger expansion, right? Like, we need to just start with your body. So let's get you used to taking in full breaths. Let's get you used to sitting in music and not being controlled by the beat, right? But being moved by what feels good. So that's where I start, is the body and the breath and the movement.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful, and so much a part of like your journey
Mm-hmm.
of how you were led.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, yes, parts of it. Like the
yeah.
movement and the breath, and um, oh, so enjoyed our just diving into all these things, and I've learned so much about you, and just like all the things that you've done. All the many roles and the many boxes that you've burned. I'm wondering if there is something else that wants to be said, or something
Mm.
to share.
Just the reminder that pleasure is not the luxury, it's the necessity, right? We often think that I'll have that with an in. Like, it's one of those wait and see, right? Like, after I've put all the kids to bed, or after I've cooked all the meals, or after I've done all the work, or after, then I will take a moment and I will rest. And it is for everybody, every human, every being on the planet. And it is like your food, it is a necessity for your life. It heals, it moves, it transforms, and it is yours to own and expand and explore.
Mhm. Beautiful. Yes. Just want to highlight so many things in this conversation, but I love that message because it's not just something, because that's not giving any priority, right? That goes at the
Right.
last after all the other things are done, all the things that are part of that pain punishment, model that a lot of us are in. And then, okay, we can have a little bit of pleasure because we finished all of that.
Hmm.
And then it's just what we deserve and what part of it. It's just
Yeah.
part of everything that we do.
Yeah.
Oh, Toran, thank you so much. And I'd love for you to share where people can find you, what's lighting you up, what you have to offer, maybe that people can join and learn more about
Yeah.
your work.
Thank you. Well, you can find me here on Instagram. I'm Toran McGill on all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on the website, toranmcgill.com. I currently have an offer of a pleasure intensive. It's 90 minutes of time with me, and I hone in on your body specifically and give you a pleasure prescription. It's currently $1,555, and you can book that through Instagram, or you can DM me and let me know that that's something that you'd like. You can find my book on my website, toranmcgill.com. And I think that's all the places. I'm in all the places as myself. I brag that's huge and big.
Yes, that is huge and big. You as yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So I
So what,
would
oh, go ahead.
go. No, I was going to say that I also work with men, and I think often that is the big misnomer too that men have, that I find, is that they think pleasure is a girly thing or it's a woman thing, and it's like,
Mm,
oh, well, let me get you connected to your own and see how
uh,
potent you become in your own pleasure. So,
yes, absolutely. And part of like the sacred masculine, right? And
hmm,
we all need to be healing and yes, leaning into this pleasure and
yeah.
experiencing that. So I love that you're working with both men and women. And I wanted to know the name of your book.
Oh, the name of my book is called My Voice on Paper. It is a collection of sensual selfies, sexy selfies, and sensual poems. So, My
Mm,
Voice on Paper.
I love that.
Thank you. And you can find that on my website at tormcgill.com. There's even what's the word? You can get the paper version or you can get the electronic version. So if
Okay.
you like need to have it right now, you
We
can get it right now.
we can now right away. We don't have to wait. We don't have to have yeah, we can get the pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Instant
Yeah.
gratification.
Yeah, so you can get it right now. And then if you're looking for that 90-minute, the pleasure experience, potency induction is all about initiating you back into your body, getting you started back on your own pleasure path, spending 90 minutes with me, the Pleasure Priestess, like I said, diving into what your own personal story is and the way that you want it to go. So,
Ooh, I love that. Thank you so
thank
much for
you.
being here. And yeah, I love that you have these opportunities for people to just kind of take that next step. If this is something that is totally does feel uncomfortable, take a
Yes.
step, to just explore a little bit and feel that the the feeling of being full of pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
being expansive, experiencing that which has no threshold, as you mentioned. Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali. It's been a great pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. So good. So I'll be posting this and I'll send it. I post it also on I don't have a big following on YouTube, but it's easy to share it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Putting it there as well. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I will mention also that I've decided to kind of, because I could just do these conversations every day, just because they're so amazing. But I am gonna like slow it down. And I was thinking
Mm.
every couple of weeks, and what it might end up being is what I think it's gonna be is the new moon and the full moon kind of fall.
Ooh.
Because I really love in the moon cycle. It feels really
Mm.
good. So yeah, so thank
Genius.
you for yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. Do what feels good, babe.
Right, right. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Until,
Thank you for having me.
oh yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined. All right.